Hello, everybody. Everybody Loves Raymond 360 on a Sunday. Hello. Very excited today to be joined by Lisa Helfrich Jackson, who knows more about the show than pretty much anybody on the planet. Hello, Teresa. Hello, everybody. Hello, Bobby. Hello, yes. So, happy Sunday, everybody in London, Chicago, Australia. Hello. Today is a day I've been looking forward to for a long time. I have finally spoken and convinced Lisa to join us, and she'll be coming over. And I would say she'll explain the function of the line producer. I tried to put up some pictures of some of the events, but basically this will be very, very informative. Hello, you've been watching ELR since you came to the U.S. Where did you come from? Best show ever. Thank you. Very nice. Where did you come from? Chesridwan. That's tough for me. Hello, Ohio. Hello, Maine. Hello. Yes. So many nice people. Hello from Las Cruces, New Mexico. Home of Richard Branson is staying post-flight. That's awesome. Hello, Sandra in New Jersey, or Sandra. Which way do you pronounce it? Hello, Trish. Hello, Charlotte, North Carolina. Hello, Connecticut, North Carolina. Yes, hello. Let me just do this. See this. Let's do this. We will invite Lisa. Okay, I can't see the screen now because I'm searching. Okay, so. All right. Let's see. You're watching ELR right now. Awesome. Hello, Mexico. Hello, Wisconsin. Hello, Stuttgart, Germany. Wie geht's in Stuttgart? What do they call the show in German? I'm just curious. Or do you watch it in English? Let me just text. Let's see this. Texting Lisa because it says, let me see if she's following us. Yes, all of the nice technical obstacles for talking to people. Let's share this. Let's do this and do this. Let's send this to Lisa. We just did a test 2 minutes ago, so I know she is ready. Okay, let me scroll back and see what I missed. Hello, Mountain View, California. A lot happens in Mountain View. Hello, yes. Hello, great number of people. Okay, let's try Lisa again. So I posted George and Jason's birthday. I think it's July 6th and 7th or something like that. So let's see, Lisa. Let's try Lisa. And it's good, and I think you see that we are beginning to the family atmosphere that we have. Hello, Scotland. Hello, Pete. Okay. Hello, Becky. Good evening. That tells me you are in the UK, perhaps, or somewhere over there. Hello, Hank from Kent, UK. Good to see you as well. Hello from Burntwood. Where is Burntwood? Great. Hello. So, Lisa will tell us the story. We were talking earlier about some of the difficulties of having to do certain things. It's Euro soccer tournament UK, so there's probably a few of us that are distracted right now. Oh, yes, competing with soccer. Do you guys call it soccer in the UK? Because I know it's called football everywhere else. Okay, a few wrinkles is unable to join. That's her code name. Let me try it again, Lisa. And Lisa, if you can hear me, you might want to do a restart on your phone. Let's try it one more time. Send the request. Go Italy. Okay. All right, Lisa.
Sorry. New to this.
I will say this, Lisa, so you don't feel bad. Larry Babbitts took 35 minutes to join.
It didn't actually show you were live. That's why I was confused, because I was on Instagram and I restarted and it came up live.
Okay. Which has happened to me before, where I've had people go, "What are you doing?" And it never indicaed live.
I'm not that technologically challenged. I'm actually fairly savvy.
One of the tricks of Instagram. So Lisa, thanks for joining. People know that. Here's the thing. This is a great family of people, fans I'm talking about, the fans. And so just to clarify, they know the show better than you and I ever will. Okay, as broadcast episodes. So if there's anything that we need to figure out, you just throw it to them and they'll give an answer lickety split. I was trying to, when these questions would come up in the last year, I would be like, oh, let me ask Lisa. And one of the challenges, besides not remembering, is a lot of people just don't like to talk. You know, they're behind the camera for a reason, you know? So Phil, Andy Kindler, they'll talk every week, which is fantastic. Yeah. So, and when people are like, just have somebody on, and you're one of the people I consider who doesn't necessarily want to be in the spotlight, but you know a lot. And I'll go even further. You know more than almost anybody on the planet about Everybody Loves Raymond.
You know what's funny? You know what the first thing I thought of was when you said these people know this show better? I thought of the fork and spoon. I thought of the fork and spoon debacle in Bernie's kitchen.
Oh, well, when you say the debacle, so here's a good question, Lisa, because I want to go back and hear for people what you do exactly. But do you know why, because this will come up, do you know why the fork and spoon went from large to small? Smaller.
I don't remember that, but what I remember is we did a whole episode where she takes them off the wall. She finally takes them down. She's talking, taking them down because they've been there for so long. So she's finally talked into taking them down. And she takes them down and you see the wallpaper is faded around them, so the imprint is in the wallpaper. But the part that viewers don't know was that Phil had said, you know, we're doing this whole story about the fork and spoon. We just want to make sure that this is they've always been this way. Because, you know, we take sets down in between episodes, in between seasons. And then so they would put the sets back up and the set dressers are supposed to take photos and for continuity and put everything back the way it was. But obviously, sometimes things would get slightly moved around, right? So it was very clear to say, I need to make sure that that fork and the spoon is in the right way, that it's always been, because we're doing a whole story about it. And so, you know, the set decorators swore, yep, this is the way it's always been. And we put it up, and then the episode aired, and some viewer who was a big fan of the show and had watched it pointed out that in a previous season it had been switched, and Phil was unhappy about that.
So you're this is the perfect place to tell that story, because so that's the baggage episode, which everybody knows. And so I don't know if you can see the comments, Lisa, because it's kind of hard at times. But yeah. So people quoting, "Don't let a suitcase full of cheese be your big fork and spoon." Yes, the Roquefort cheese, absolutely. So for some reason, and I think you can take us through it, but for some reason it went from, let's say, for lack of a better thing, 4 feet long to about 3 feet long. And I don't know why.
It probably, I don't remember, but my guess would be is that we probably rented it from a prop house and it wasn't available the next season. And so they had to rent something else that was similar. You know?
We'll ask. And would that be Donna Stamps?
That's a Donna Stamp question. I'm sure she'll know it well, because she lived that nightmare too. When it was
and so Donna Stamps is her title is set decorator, is she, or set
decorator? Mm-hmm.
Set decorator. Okay. So now, Lisa, let's go back a little, because you which
Somebody
I said,
just wrote the fork and spoon changed though on the last seasons. Yeah, that was not on purpose.
yeah. Or maybe Donna did a calculated move. So, and by the way, Lisa, I want to. They're such big fans. I want to sell a big fork and spoon, some iteration of that. I want to be able to give that to the fans because it's such an iconic part of the show. We'll talk later, but you, since you have so much knowledge and you were there from the very beginning to the very end, and then you actually were on stage 5 where we shot Everybody Love Raymond right after doing the Julie Louis-Dreyfus show.
5 more years, we did the New Adventures of Old Christine, so I was on that stage
Right.
for a long time.
You were there for 14 years, well, 13 because we're at Hollywood Center. Yeah,
exactly.
So let's just go back to what is even a line producer do for the layman? Because I didn't know when Ray and I started, we were like, "What is a line producer?" You know.
So I guess I sort of describe my job as I'm the person that has to take the script and figure out how to actually physically make it, how to bring it to reality, in terms all the logistics. So from we start off at the beginning by budgeting the show and scheduling the show, and then hiring the crew and figuring out all the people that we need, the right people in every department. And somebody once said to me when I was starting as a producer, the most important part of your job is the first 2 weeks, meaning it's who you hire. And so we hire all of our department heads and our crew, and then we sit down and we try to figure out how to make the show and then day to day, week to week is all the managing of the logistics of making the show. So people like to call my job non-creative, which I always have a little bit of an issue with because I sort of feel like a good producer understands the creative well enough to know what are the priorities, because there's never a time where somebody says, we joke around as producers, like no one's ever said, today we have enough time and enough money to make the show. And so you have to understand creatively what's important to fight for, and if you don't have money or time, how to organically rein the show in or bring the scope of the show in without hurting the story. So I do feel there's a little bit of you have to understand the creative, but it's the logistics. It's all the day-to-day management. That's what the line producer does.
And so I've heard that too. And I never use that term when people are like, well, what is the line producer do? Well, they do all the non-creative. And I think they're solving in a creative way more problems, because we as writers are sitting there like, oh, okay, so what happens here? What happens there? And just to be clear, when you get the script, what Phil is looking for is yes. We can do this. We can do that. We can do this. And HBO and Worldwide Pants, who were the producers, or in any other case, there are people who look over the budget and go, okay, so you want to crash a car through the wall. Okay, we're not going to do that because that'll add X to the budget. So that's done. And you want to go to Italy. Well, we're not going to Italy. How about Burbank? So you have to go back to Phil and go, Phil, what about instead of Italy, what about Burbank? And so,
what about the back lot?
Yeah, what about the back lot? So that term, I'm just saying for people in the industry, there's another term that you hear, which is called below the line and above the line. Mm-hmm. And so is that, for people to understand, does that help in any way or not really?
Not really. I mean, producers are above the line. We're considered above the line. But when you separate it above the line is generally writers, directors, producers, actors, cast. That's above the line. And then
writers, directors,
producers, actors,
cast.
Cast and writers and producers and directors are your above the line costs and the writing costs, and then below the line is the actual physical production costs. So you would below the line is just physical production. The physical production costs are below the line. Yeah, so that's all the crew and the equipment and the stages and the
right. So then let's go back even more, because you probably don't know this, but when I was talking to Andy Kindler, because I didn't know, Andy Kindler's like, I moved out to LA to be a singer-songwriter. And I said, yeah, I really don't know that. I never knew that, and it was fascinating. So Lisa, you go to college for, I mean, I know the answers to some of this, but you go to college and you think, in a few years I'll be in LA and I'll be producing a giant hit sitcom.
No, that is not how it went down. I went to college. I'm from Peoria, Illinois. I Hollywood was a very long way away. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't really know what the jobs were. And I think that's now with the, internet, the World Wide Web, people have more information. But I think at that time, I'm old.
Well, Lisa, let me just stop you, because for people in England and Australia, what Lisa's talking about is the middle of the U.S. So it's what they call in Hollywood the flyover, not necessarily just in Hollywood, the flyover states. So the big city is New York and Los Angeles, and way down there when you're flying over it,
the middle.
Are a bunch of cornfields and people who the furthest thing from their mind is how to make a living in Hollywood. Generally.
Right. And I had an inkling for many years from the time I was quite young that I wanted to be in show business, but I think the only job that I knew people did was acting. So I thought, well, I'll be an actor. And I studied theater in my small college in the middle of the country. And I was not a good actor, but it was the one thing that I did while I was in school was I worked on the crew of the local PBS station. And that gave me a small taste of kind of the behind the scenes. And so I thought, well, maybe there's a job for me there. And when I graduated, I just packed my car and drove across the country. I knew one person in LA, and I got a terrible job selling, I don't remember beepers, pagers before cell phone.
Sure.
Selling beepers, but I parlayed. I would sell beepers, and I had some production companies as accounts. And so I would hit the production coordinator up when I drop off the beepers. I'd sort of slip my resume and hit them up for a PA job. And someone gave me a job as a production assistant. And I just sort of got into the bottom and just did all the jobs on the way up.
What was the show that you were a PA? PA stands for production assistant for those not in the business. So you went from, and by the way, in the blooper reels, one of the blooper reels, Ray's pager goes off. So it's season 1 or 2. I'm going to guess season 2 during the middle of the filming. So beepers or pagers were still very prevalent back then. Yeah. So then what is the first thing you're a production assistant on?
It was a little show called First and 10, one of HBO's original programming shows starring OJ Simpson.
Wow. And how long ago was this before? This is 89, 90?
This was 88, 89. Yeah. I did the show for 3 years. I started as a PA. I got hired as a PA, and it was a 3-week temporary job. And I didn't have a day off from that company for 3 years. And I started as a PA, and I left as a production coordinator. I moved up the ranks.
But not on that show.
On that show, I became a production coordinator.
Oh, so that show aired for 3 years.
It was on for like 5 years. I came in, I wasn't on the first couple of seasons. It was on for a while.
Was OJ the star?
Yeah, he was the star.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing.
It was about a fictitious football team, and he was like the manager, and then Delta Burke was the owner. And then Delta Burke left the show to go do Designing Women. And then...
what did OJ do after that? What did he go on to after that?
Well, let's see.
So wait. So that show then must have gone off the air in about 92, 93.
Yeah, I guess. I left the show. I did 3 years of it, and then I left because I got another opportunity that was a better gig and a move up. And so I did 3 seasons, and then I bowed out, and it went on for a year or two after that, I think.
So when he allegedly committed this giant crime, allegedly, were you shocked? Because did you have much contact with OJ?
I had a lot of contact with him. I was on set every day for 3 seasons.
Okay.
When I was a PA, I used to park his Ferrari.
Okay.
I have pictures of me and OJ in front of his Ferrari when the license plate says juice on it. And we used to call him Juice. And I met my husband on that show. A lot happened on that show. And we could have a whole podcast telling stories about that, but we won't go there. But
by the way, the next time you're on, because there's going to be so many questions, and what's going to happen, because this happens all the time, Lisa, and you have too many stories, obviously, for one, let alone 50 appearances, is it will be 38 minutes from now, and I'll say, bye, Lisa, and you'll be like, well, I didn't even get to one story about Raymond. Exactly. But the OJ story, so I've known you forever. I never knew that. And
it was like another life. I haven't talked about it. I can tell you that my husband, my husband was a cameraman on that show. So we met on that show
Oh.
many years, 30 years ago. And when OJ, at first I think we thought, oh, he couldn't have done it. But then we were watching the trial, they televised it.
Yeah.
And so we used to joke around that on that show, he had like 3 acting faces that he would make. Like he kind of had he didn't have a wide range as an actor.
Okay.
And he would kind of pull these faces. And as the Brits would say, he pulled faces. And he was pulling his faces during the trial. And that's when Mark and I said, oh, we think he did it.
Yeah, well, yes, we could go on because I hear they had some evidence also.
My husband, even better, used to run into him on the golf course because after that he couldn't play private courses, and so my husband would run into him on the golf course, and it'd always be funny when he would walk up to Mark, say, "Hey man, how's it going?" And Mark would be like, "Hey, Juice."
So, just as a side note, Mark is a cameraman who also did that. He also worked on the Titanic movie, correct?
Mm-hmm. Titanic and True Lies and all the Charlie's Angels movies. And
a lot of big movies. All right, so now I'm scrolling back up to the questions. The beauty, Lisa, of this versus a podcast is you get to answer questions. The downside is, we interrupt some stories to answer some questions. Yeah, and we're competing a little bit with an England versus I think Italy soccer match.
Yeah, and it's 1-1. I was watching it. I've got Wimbledon on. I didn't. Wimbledon's over, but I haven't seen it, so it's on my TV with the sound down right now, and the football's on in the other room. I cover a show called Ted Lasso for Warner Brothers now, and it's a football show, so I'm into the football world now.
So Lisa, just again, because I think, and I used to say this to Ray, a show gets pulled from syndication if the star, for example, Bill Cosby, all of that went away. And then there's a few other shows where something bad, the star did something bad. So my guess is the OJ show, which ran for 5 years, which is enough for syndication, instantly got pulled if it was in syndication. So that's why we haven't heard it. That's why we don't know. First and 10 it was called?
It was called First and 10. It was a fictitious football team, and they always had they had different actresses play the owner. Delta Burke was the owner at the beginning, and OJ was the manager. And then they had Shannon Tweed played the owner one year. He was married to Gene Simmons. Tweed, and Shanna Reed played the owner one year. So we had Shannon Tweed and Shanna Reed. So that was a little confusing too.
Wow. And was this a multi-camera sitcom?
No, it was a single camera. It was
and where?
16 millimeter.
Where was it shot? Where was it?
It was all on location. We didn't have a stage.
No you had a studio though.
Mm-mm. It was Kushner Lock. Kushner Lock was the production company for HBO. It was one of HBO's original programming.
So there was no studio where were your offices?
No stages. We had offices in Westwood.
Where?
In Westwood on Wilshire, we had offices where and then we shot the whole thing on location, and we shot all the football for 12 episodes at one time out at College of the Canyons in the middle of the season. All the football plays. We'd shoot crossboard 6 episodes in 6 episodes. And for those of you who don't know, watching, if you're paying attention, if you're not bored already, crossboarding means you shoot the episodes all together. So you shoot all of one location for all the episodes at one time, so you can get out of that location. It saves you money, so you don't have to keep going back to locations. So we would crossboard 6 episodes at a time, and in the middle we did football for 12 episodes out in the heat at College of the Canyons.
This sounds terrible.
It was hard. It was hard. Low budget, hard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that brings us to, what was your first sitcom?
Oh God. So I started off in the single camera world of single camera series and TV movies, and I had been on the road, and I got a call to do a little sitcom called Good Sports with Farrah, Fawcett, and Ryan O'Neal.
Wow. Multicam or single cam?
Multicam. Alan Zweibel was the showrunner, and it was Bernie Brillstein. And it took us a whole season to finish, I don't know, I think we did 13 episodes, maybe 16 episodes. It was not a good show, and it was very difficult. And I thought, well, I was supposed to be getting off the road and staying. I wanted to stay in town. I'd been out of town a lot working, and I was ready to kind of just be home. And
So wait a minute, Lisa, let's go back, because you dropped 2 big Hollywood names, Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett. And so
was there the reason it took so long to shoot that show, was there personal fights between Farrah and Ryan, or it was just production problems?
Oh my gosh, I have so many stories from these shows. I've forgotten about them. You're making me think about them all again. I mean,
Yeah.
That was not an easy show. They were not easy. They were kind of either throwing knives at each other or lovey-dovey. Like there was not a whole lot of middle ground.
So, like Frank and Marie a little bit. So, so then Lisa and how? So this is going to have to be a 10-hour interview because again,
so much to talk about.
Yeah, something I didn't know also. So that show gets canceled. The Farrah Fawcett, Ryan O'Neal, also a show I've never heard of with two very high-profile people. And how is Farrah Fawcett to deal with? Okay, next.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Okay, then we'll talk another time. Maybe if you meet us at Ricky's room and get a couple of drinks, we'll talk about it.
Exactly.
So Lisa, now we must be getting close to 1993, 94, 95, close to Everybody Raymond days.
Yeah, I did. I mean, that was before. It was early 90s. I don't remember. I mean, there were some other short-lived shows in there, and then I moved up into the associate producer ranks, and I got hired on a remake of Get Smart with Andy Dick, which we probably never talked about either, which was a single cam short-lived show. And then after that, I got a call. Vic Kaplan, who I'd worked for quite a while, starting with Good Sports through the original Ellen show. He was taking over Ellen in season 5, I think. And so he said, "You want to come do that with me?" So I went to the original Ellen sitcom for 1 year.
Okay.
And I was the associate producer, and I got a call from HBO, who I had done a lot of work for over the years and really liked. And Carmi Zlotnick, the head of production, and one of his associates called me and said, "We have this pilot called Everybody Loves Raymond. We did the pilot. The producers of the pilot is going back to his series. Would you consider working on this show with us?" And I was like, "Well, I have a job. I'm going back to Ellen." And I said, and I was sort of like, "Send me the tape. I'll look at it." It wasn't when you get a VHS tape, and then somebody dropped it off at my door, and I watched it, and I remember my parents were in town visiting, and we watched it, and we said, "Well, this is really good." And so I remember sitting on paper trying to figure out if I left the hit show that had a full season to go do this Everybody Loves Raymond show, but might get canceled after 13 episodes, like how much money would I make, and would it be worth it? This is a life lesson to all of you who are listening, a very important life lesson. I was doing the job on Ellen, which was a post-production job, and I wanted to be back in production. And Everybody Loves Raymond was the job I wanted to do. And I remember thinking it was a better job, a little more money, but it could easily get canceled after 13 episodes because it was an unknown, it was a new show, and most of them do get canceled. And so I just followed my heart. I met with Phil, and I loved him, and I loved the show, and I just thought, I'm going to do the job I want. That was when I was young and foolish and just did the job I wanted. And obviously following my heart was the right thing to do.
Yeah, but it could have. So I just posted.
Disaster.
Yeah, I posted last week that some of the ratings things, which I'll put some more because. Yeah. So Everett Raymond was number 84 in the ratings at the end of season 1. But before the end, before we had these 4 episodes that aired on a Monday night, we were hovering sometimes 106 in the ratings, 104 in the ratings.
I remember thinking I've made a terrible mistake. I might have made a terrible mistake. And when was the cruise ship episode?
Cruising with Marie.
When was that?
That was not season 1. That was like season 2 or 3.
There was one episode, season 1, where I remember thinking this might not work, and I feel like it was Ray like talking to himself in the mirror, or there was a green screen in the mirror and the Pope in the mirror. Was that?
That was season 1.
Yeah, I remember thinking, I don't know about this.
just from that moment.
No, it very quickly found its way. I feel like 6 episodes in, the show was going well.
Well, the ratings were not the ratings. So
no. I mean creatively. It makes
creatively, yeah. Well, So when Ray, I will say this, and then we're going to get to some meaty stories. Sorry, just to go back, Lisa, just for people joining, I'm just scanning through the questions, not to slow it down. Yeah.
I just saw my nephew on the Instagram. With 2 thumbs up.
On the Instagram.
On the Instagram, on the comment feed.
How quaint. So getting back to the season, in the first season, there was an episode called Standard Deviation. And I remember Ray and I were, when we were sharing a place, we watched that cut of that. And that was the first time. So that's only episode 4 or 5, somewhere in there. Steve Scrovan wrote it. But that was the first time, and Ray and I were talking about this the other day, that we said, okay, this show is really I know we're in it. I mean, we're in the process, so it's not like we've never seen this. But when we saw that cut, we're like, oh, this really is funny.
It's
and
working,
so,
yeah.
But having said that, there are a lot of really funny shows that don't get the benefit of the doubt, and they go away. And so do you remember, because I don't, was the first order for 13 and then we got like 6 more? Because there wasn't the back 9.
I don't remember, but I assume based on the model of what the shows were then, it was 13 and we probably got a back 9.
Yeah.
So we did a full season the first year. So
Yeah.
It would have been pilot plus 12. So the pilot happened in the spring. Then they greenlit it to series, so it was 12 episodes, and then they pick up back 9. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's funny. I know Phil always tells the story of like he felt like the show was going to make it when Ray and Peter did that scene where he kisses Peter on the head.
The ball.
Yeah.
The ball episode, the Christmas episode. Well.
Yeah, I feel like Phil always tells the story of like that was a pivotal moment. For him.
Phil and I think the time when Deborah puts the ice cream in Ray's lap. Those are a few moments. But we didn't know, so we're still number 84 at the end of season 1. Yeah. So that's still terrible. That's not even the.
I would go like home for a visit, and people say, "So what are you working on?" I said, "I'm working on this show, Everybody Loves Raymond." Like, what's that?
Yeah. And Ray had the same. Nobody recognized Ray season 1. You weren't walking, it was not for a while. All right. So then, do you remember, Lisa, the first time you saw, you come into the stage, so we're at Hollywood Center Studios, we were on stage 3/8.
Right.
Did you have to secure that stage, or that was already established?
No, we got that stage. I think I don't remember exactly, but I think, you just see what's available, and that was available and probably in the price range. It's not not as expensive as a place like Warner Brothers, and I can't remember. I'm sure HBO and whoever. Stu was on then. Stu.
Right.
So I'm sure they just made a lease agreement with signed a lease agreement. Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. And so it's in hindsight, only because now one of the reasons I started doing this, Lisa, is, as you know, I took a jillion photos. And so I started thinking, you know what, let me write descriptions for myself, because let me remember, okay, that's Judson Crowder and so then I said, okay, let me put that up on Instagram and at least share these photos. And then when I read Desi Arnaz's autobiography, I was like, oh, there's so many people involved with that show that I wish I could talk to now, and they're all gone and they didn't write their stories. And so I was like, let me talk to absolutely everybody who was a player in that story. And Hollywood Center Studios, now that I know, I didn't know it then, it was where I Love Lucy was for the first 2 seasons, and they were the ones that had to make a soundstage floor smooth so the cameras can roll. It didn't even exist. All these things that you take for granted we're done there. So at that point, though, it's more just, this is an economic decision of like, where's the cheapest stage that we can fit on? Okay, Hollywood Center is decent, etc.
Yeah, so. I don't remember, but I'm sure it was an economic decision. I'm sure it was a reasonably priced place to shoot. Yeah.
So the Neighbors episode, Donnell, is it Donnell? Yes, who's one of our best fans. Neighbors was episode 20 of season 1. That was the Pope in the Mirror. The neighbors
okay.
and standard deviation was episode 4.
Earlier,
So
much earlier, yeah.
yeah. What was much 4. So now, season 1. And do you remember the first time I met you? Because I'm going to say this.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw you. And do you know where it was? We went to Vegas. All of the writers and me went to Vegas to see Ray Romano's stand up, to see
Right.
his set, so that we could get a sense of, like, they could get a sense of his comedy. And so I remember you standing, it was kind of a dark room. And so Ray did his set. And then afterwards, I think we met him, and you were there kind of lurking in the shadows.
Yes.
You were there. And I remember clocking you. I think I met you then, right?
Yeah. So that was the Comedy Stop at the Trop.
Right.
Was where Ray would go. And Ray, just to bring this story full circle, when I first started doing stand-up, I read about a guy who won a contest in Atlantic City, a Comedy Stop at the Trop, with 100 comedians. And I said, I'm going to try and win that contest, which I did enter, and I made it to the finals, the top 15. It was 3 days. But the guy who won was named Ray Romano. And so the guy that owned that club also in Atlantic City also owned that club in Las Vegas. So at that point, Ray was like, do you want to go to Las Vegas? I got to go to Las Vegas if you want to go. And then we were going to come to Los Angeles to film the first promos. So Ray flew to LA to CBS Fairfax. I don't think you were there for the promos.
No.
Lou Schneider was there. And if you can find this on YouTube for those watching, Ray says something like, I don't like to be demanding or something like that. And then he just goes mint or something, and something gets thrown, or apple or something.
I remember those. I remember that.
Yeah. So that was season 1. So now the show kicks off, right? You're meeting Phil and the writers and in that production office for the first time. And it feels like the show might go or might not go, but for you, having worked with Farrah, Fawcett, and Ryan O'Neal and OJ Simpson, does the factor of like, oh, these are nice, stable people come into play at that point? Like, are you thinking, oh, I made the right decision for that reason?
No. I mean, here's the thing I will say. I've worked with it's funny because my whole career right now, as we're having this conversation, is just flooding back. It's funny how things you don't think about start popping up. But I always have the people that I worked closely with, for the most part in my life, have been pretty nice to me and pretty supportive. So I've been in some crazy situations on shows, but the people that are my close team have always been pretty good. There's a few exceptions along the way, obviously, but I've always been, luckily, and maybe just got lucky that it worked out this way, that I've worked with people that were pretty nice people and pretty good to me personally. So
on the production end, but you just named 3 stars.
But yes, I mean, definitely. I remember, I was so young when I came on the show, when I think about it now, and I had a baby early, and I do remember very quickly feeling, and I'll tell you, yeah, the short answer to your question is yes. And the reason I know that is because it was the first time where I thought I could actually have a career and I could have a kid at the same time. And I actually had a baby. Now that you're a parent, you can relate to this. I was like the first time where I thought I could actually do this. And I had a baby on the show, when I was on the show, and early on, and it was the first time where I felt like, yeah, I'm with this could all work. I could actually figure this out. And so 100%. Yeah.
So I'm saying more, you see Ray, who's a really sweet guy, and you see, you know what I mean? Like Doris is, these were grounded people, especially Ray and Phil. You're talking about a grounded pair of people who are not doing cocaine, and they have a family. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, it is a Hollywood.
The funniest thing that I think of when you say that is, I remember we had a director, Gary Halverson, who directed a lot of our episodes, and he was also, so the people, I don't know if people know this, I haven't watched the podcast before, but I don't know if they know that Friends also shot on the Warner Brothers lot, like 2 stages over from us at the same time. So we were on stage 5 and they were just down on 24, like a couple stages down. And we had a director who did a lot of their shows and a lot of our shows. So I remember one time we were all sitting on the set, like after run through, it was like Patty and Ray and everybody sitting around for notes. And, you know, people don't know this, but we had a very small stage. And so it was kind of our clubhouse, and there was no place, like we didn't have a separate green room to go to give notes. We would just sit on the set in the living room, like it was our living room, and the notes would happen. And I remember one time, Patty or somebody was asking Gary Halverson questions about what was going on Friends, because we'd always hear all the stuff that was going on Friends, and that was such a big hit. And I remember somebody said to Gary, "Do they sit around and talk about us?" No.
Yeah.
We were so not cool. We were just like doing our thing. It was like a very low key, really, you know, not a flashy.
So,
group.
yeah. So I told the story here about Ray and I got thrown off this, mostly Ray, because I'm not the star of a show, but we went to the Friends set, and they asked us to leave after a few, I don't know how long we were there. And they're like, you guys have to leave. And I remember thinking, he is the star of a show that's shooting 2 stages away.
Yeah, exactly.
And their security was so tight that on Everybody Love Raymond, you could kind of wander on the stage at any point and go, "Is Doris Roberts here?" And you could go, "Yeah, well, yeah, she's up in the dressing room. Yeah, go say hi." And so, yes. So just for the people watching, Gary Halverson directed the finale of Friends and many, many episodes of Friends. And he was a very efficient, fast director. So he was in demand. Phil enjoyed that. Because he got the job done quickly, for lack of a better thing. Yeah, and he did. I've run into Gary, and unfortunately, Gary's somebody who isn't on Instagram and would never. He wouldn't even go to parties. You know, he was not Mr.
He never came to a rap party.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So let me just scroll through before we get back to Everybody Loves Raymond season 1, because it almost sounds funny, Lisa. My question of, did you feel like they were more stable? You felt, and your response was almost more stable than Farrah, Fawcett, Ryan O'Neal, and OJ? No, not really.
I consider, when I'm on a show, like my day-to-day life is really more affected by the people I work closely with that are, and I also wasn't a producer on those shows. So
right.
It was not so.
No, I know what you're saying. The production team is your core. So they could be fighting on stage and throwing bottles at each other, and you wouldn't necessarily be affected.
And honestly, I've just forgotten it because I'm old. It was stressful, probably stressful at the time.
Yes. Well, yeah, Ryan O'Neal and Farrah Fawcett. Okay, so let me just go through, Lisa, because you're going to have to come back, unfortunately. This is a pending question that I have to find out an answer to, and I will go back to these questions. Can you find out, or do you know the name of the hotel where the cast stayed in the lake and in Rome when you guys were in the Italy episode?
Oh, well, the hotel we stayed at in Rome, we stayed at, on that trip, we went on a scout and we stayed at a fancier hotel. But when we went with the whole group, we stayed at a Hilton because we had a deal.
A Hilton in Rome.
In Rome. We never stayed out in the country. We shuttled out to the country, but the lake was Lago di Bracciano, and there were 3 little villages around it. It was Bracciano, Trevignano, and I forget the third one.
So you never overnighted. You only overnighted in Rome, and then road trip daytime.
We shuttled from Rome.
Okay.
Rome was the base, and then
And where they walk out on the balcony and you see the vista of the lake, that's the lake. That's the main lake.
That's Lago di Bracciano.
Okay.
I don't remember if that village was Trevignano or Bracciano. I want to say Trevignano, but I can't. But it was Lago di Bracciano. And if you look at a map, there's 3 little villages around it. And I think we shot in
those, yeah. All right. So, Lisa, by the way, I found, so somebody wrote, this sounds like a stressful job, the line producer. And I feel like it is, because you can't drop the ball at all. Like, there's no place to hide as the line producer. So
I'm just going to say this. I didn't keep much in the way of mementos from Everybody Loves Raymond. I have one of the camera slates from the last episode. One of the camera guys gave it to me. But the one thing I have, and it's hanging in my house, is a small triptych of frog paintings. Because that episode alone was stressful, and one of the set decorators who painted all those paintings overnight that completely made it work, I came in the next day and there was those 3 frog paintings sitting on my desk, and I still have them.
That's from She's the One, where Ray goes, and then she ate it. Yes, so that's funny. Yes. So now, Lisa, I don't even know if you're even aware that Everybody Love Raymond is on Peacock, the Peacock network now, right? And so here, let me just scroll back and we'll get to all of these questions, and then we're going to go back. Somebody's from Peoria, Illinois. Donna Bennett is from Peoria, Illinois. Yes, someone's moving back. Loving this. Yes, the OJ stories. What was the favorite thing to do at your job? And before you answer that, I was going to say, as a writer, when you hand in the script, you're like, oh, okay. You know, my script, I'll probably get I'll definitely get notes and whatever, but that heavy lifting is done. For you, was there ever a day in the week when you're like, because you're already prepping for next week, but was there ever a moment where you're like, okay, I can rest for 5 hours?
I mean, you know, yes and no. We had hiatus weeks on multis, so you have a little minute to catch your breath. You know, it depends.
Right.
It comes in waves. You know, our show was, once it got really well established and was a hit, it was busy, but we had support and we had enough money to make it and all those things. So that some of that stress went away for sure. But it was just always busy, and you were always sort of you're always doing post-production on the one you already shot. You're doing the one you're shooting now, and then you're prepping the one next. And so, but our show was, I've been on shows that were a lot harder. It helps when you're a success. The first couple of years on the show was a lot harder than the last couple of years.
Yeah. Well,
and, you know.
Yep. What you're alluding to is once you're a hit show, they're more likely to approve. So, So when Phil said, I want to go to Italy, that would not have happened season 1 or season 2.
I was just talking to the you know, CBS had to pay for that, because I don't know if people know how shows work, but on the broadcast model, the studio that owns the show gets a license fee from the network, and that doesn't cover the whole cost. The studio takes some risk because they own the show, and they will ultimately be able to sell it around the world and make money, right, in syndication.
Right.
So I remember when we were going to Italy, we had to go to CBS and ask for $2 million to go to Italy. And I remember them like kind of saying, you know, you're crazy to me. And then they gave us $2 million to go to Italy. I still give the CBS executive shit about that. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and the truth is, at that point, just to paint the picture, CBS had been number 3 in the ratings, and I posted this last week, had been number 3 in the ratings and was in question whether it was going to continue as a network. That's how bad it was, the rumors, etc. So it was a very, very low-rated network. Everybody Love Raymond was the little oasis, this thing that happened on Monday nights starting the last part of season 1. So it was invaluable. And what you have, which I didn't write in the post, is when you have one hit show, you can help resurge a network because you can launch another show after that show. So when you had the Thursday night with Friends and Seinfeld, all you had to do with a new pilot was let's put it in that time slot.
Put it in between, yeah, or whatever.
And you instantly have, so if Everybody Love Raymond was on NBC, you know, viewers loved it. So if we were able to get on NBC after Seinfeld or after Friends, the audience would have came instantly. However, we're on CBS, so nobody was watching on Friday night. And
no,
then,
we're getting killed by Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yes. And so then on Monday night, when they finally moved us, they put us against Ally McBeal, I think it was. So that's this. So for CBS to write a $2 million check sounds crazy from the outside.
Now
but
it's not that much, but at the time that was a lot of money.
Well, it's also they're going, this is our only hit. This is our only.
They also said, like, you'll never, the ratings will never make up for this money. We're going to spend all this money on these first 2 episodes, and it's not going to pay off in the ratings. And it was the highest rated episodes to date of the show.
Nice.
Yeah. Was vindicated, I think.
I hope you bust their chops when you see him still. Here from Donnell, who's figured out, knows every episode inside and out. Are you surprised about the resurgence of the ELR interest? It has been a safe harbor during the pandemic storm.
Well,
So thank you for all you did to make ELR.
I really think that during these times, like shows like Raymond sort of feel like the hug that we all need. You know, we need comedy, and you know, somebody, I think you said a minute ago, like, what was your favorite thing about the show? And I'm going to actually say something that Lou Schneider, one of our writers, said to me once on the show when he was asked about what his favorite thing on the show was. And he said, I get to go to work every day and I have a belly laugh every single day. And sometimes, you know, you laugh, people don't understand that when you're working with comedy writers and comedy people, laughter is the default. It's you laugh in good times, but it's also the coping mechanism in bad times.
Yeah.
So when something's going terribly wrong, there's laughter as well, you know?
Yeah.
And so I got to go to work every day and have at least like one belly laugh. I mean, how many people get to say that? And I mean, every single time I came in the writer's room for all those years, Lou Schneider flipped me off. You know, I never got old. Like that bit never got old. And but we had a laugh every day. And gosh.
Well, I think when you're around, especially, and look, inside the writer's room, you're sitting there. There are times when we're crying, laughing so hard, and you know, Phil would just be like, I can't believe we're getting paid to do this, because you're crying, because you're in a room with a lot of funny people who are trying to be funnier than each other, and very, very perceptive. You know, to write comedy, you do have to be perceptive and aware of the room and have pretty good emotional intelligence. So any crisis with humor that's why I'm sure it wasn't as funny as the OJ.
I didn't laugh about
room.
that. I didn't laugh about OJ.
So these questions do go away, Lisa. That's why I say them out loud. So if you still have those frog paintings, if you took a picture, then I would post it if you wanted to.
I'll take a picture. Actually, hanging in my guest bathroom.
Okay. By the way, I found pictures, and then I want to get some more specific episodes because we only have 5 minutes left, Lisa.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I did find pictures of you and I. For some reason, I guess we went to the Emmys, to the Creative Arts Emmys, but it's me in a tuxedo and you dressed up also for whatever. I just found it. I'll post it because now people
did go, and I think we actually left and went to dinner in the middle of it and came back. Was that the year?
That was another year, I think. Oh. That was the year in Pasadena where we went with Phil.
Yeah, we left.
We went with Phil.
And came back so long.
Yeah, so for people watching, there's something called the Creative Arts Emmys, which is it's still an Emmy. It's still a primetime Emmy, if you know, for many, if you win it. But there's so many awards that there's 90 awards in one
it's like
in one thing.
Hours or something.
So it's so long that Lisa, Phil Rosenthal, and I went because a few of the people on the show got nominated. Pat, the editor, and I think Mike Berlin,
Brentley the
Walton, the sound guy. So we watched the first like 45 minutes. Then we went and drove to a restaurant, had a gigantic meal, and then came back, and there was still another hour and a half left in the show. So, that is from that. All right. So, Lisa, let me just think because I'm gonna. Unfortunately, you're gonna have to dodge my phone calls because you're gonna be like, I don't want to come back on, Tom. Not this week. So
this is fun. I'll come back.
Okay.
I didn't think it would be as much fun, but it's fun.
Oh, it's much more fun than you were expecting. Yeah. So because you were expecting zero fun. So do you remember for the Cruising with Marie episode, did we rent another stage where you shot?
Oh, I don't remember. I know we had a big green screen or something out the window.
Okay.
Right?
And then
screen, I feel like it was back, you know, when we did our show, like visual effects now everything is visual effects. You don't even need you could put a mark on a wall and they'll just replace it in visual effects. Now
right.
It's much harder than
so an example. Right. An example, I'm just cutting you off because we're going out of time. An example you talked about is the character Robert being chased by a bull.
Oh, yeah. I said, I can't believe we actually put that bull on the street and just had Brad running in front of it. Now you would shoot that in 2 pieces and you'd put it together. You'd never put the actor. We didn't put him in harm's way. He was far enough away.
Right.
But I remember being on the back lot and I think this is when you asked me about my job. We found a bull that looked like that, and then you had to have the bull run down the street.
Yes.
I don't remember the details. I just remember being out there going, "Wow, we're really doing this."
Yeah, Brad. Let's hope Brad Garrett doesn't slip because then we got to find another 6'8" actor to replace him. Yeah. So let me just scroll through. Yes, please come back. You were great. Thanks a million for doing this. I'm reading Donnell's comment. I bought the whole set of DVDs, and it's the best investment. Yes, Princess Christine, yes, we purchased Peacock just for ELR. Great. And Teresa, that's a great suggestion, which is contact Lucy Arnaz and speak to her about her father. She's on Instagram, yes. I love the set of ELR. It doesn't look like the cookie cutter sitcom set that's on every show. It feels very organic, yeah, I would say. And do you remember, Lisa, the toast? So now these are little single questions because we'll get into longer stuff like Italy, etc. on your next visit. But do you remember for the toaster episode, that giant pullback shot, the crane shot of
that was on a different stage. That was on a different stage.
So you set up, you were like, we need 1,000 toasts or however many toasters.
It was all the boxes, yeah. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the visual. Now that'd be a visual effects shot.
Yeah.
So it was a little forced perspective, right? You know,
yes.
A little forced perspective, old theater trick.
Yes.
And just a bunch of empty boxes printed with the toaster thing on it.
Right,
and
right.
I remember being outside Phil's office when he was on the phone with his dad because he had sent him the Christmas. People probably know this story that Phil gave everybody a toaster for Christmas that year. It said Everybody Loves Raymond on it, like these cool vintagey looking toasters. And he sent one to his dad, and I was outside his office waiting to talk to him, and he's on the phone with his dad. And I hear him saying, "What did you do?" I go back. I'm hearing Phil's side of the story, and then I got the script, and it was word for word his conversation with his dad because his parents got the toaster, didn't open the box.
Yes.
They turned it to like Macy's and lied.
Yeah.
Said, you know, they wanted a coffee maker, but they went back and got it. That was a crazy part.
And you read it in the script. It was exactly the same, and it was 1 year later when that show came about because it took.
I was there for that conversation. I heard Phil on the phone with his dad, and it was word for word his conversation. It was hilarious.
So, Lisa, did anybody ever accuse you because of going, hey, wait a minute, did you tell them my story? Because this would happen to the writers a lot. Did you share my life story with the writers or something? Because we took so much, it was so real is the bottom line.
It was so relatable. I feel like, and it's funny because some of the episodes were so specific, and I think the greater the specificity, the more universal the relatability in a weird way. Like everybody's had a fight over that dumb can opener or whatever, you know. So people would like, nobody said anything directly to me about a specific story, but I've heard many times, as recently as last week. My mother is Marie, or my, so-and-so is Ray, or my,
yes.
I hear that a lot.
So Lisa, just because before I say goodbye, right now, because you have such insight, you're working for Warner Brothers, so you're dealing with many shows at once, whereas before you would do one show, right? You would do one show for the season. And I want to get back to, on your next visit, that balancing act, because I know I talked to you at Old Christine on Stage 5, and you were talking about making the budget and how Hellman's Mayonnaise was able to step up and help with that. So I want to talk about on Everybody Loves Raymond, we had Flutie Flakes up there, which we took no money for, but it was for a good charity. There was stuff in the background. So there's so many things that I want to get into, and you won't know the answer, I don't think, but people are obsessed with that chocolate cake. And I asked Rhonda, and she said, yeah, it's a place in Burbank that makes the special chocolate cake. Do you remember eating that super, when Marie...
At craft service?
It was in the show. So I'm going back to a question earlier. Someone said, where does the food come from on the show? That's all from the props department. The props department is responsible for that food. So, yes, Doris Roberts, which someone also asked, was Doris Roberts a good cook? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Now, you would go to the Christmas party at Doris's house.
Yeah, but she didn't cook.
No, I know. I'm just saying this is an interesting part that we have to talk about. Going to Doris's house on Christmas was always a fun thing. And I would say, I was talking to somebody about a show they were on, and they said, Everybody Loves Raymond was such special time because she said the show I'm on now, they don't even have enough people who can be in the same room together to have a Christmas party. And I was like, oh my gosh, the amount of time we spent and have, you're laughing all the time. You're,
But really, and the thing that was different about Raymond than a lot of shows that had long runs is, first and foremost, the showrunner didn't leave to go do another show. Often what happens is, obviously, as you know, the showrunner, a successful show, they get a big development deal and they go develop other projects. Everybody stayed. People were there. Phil and most of the writers were there from the very beginning to the very end, and so was the crew. So it was, it was like going to high school, college, and graduate school with the same group of people. Like you really are with people all day, every day for all this time, and in a different, it's an intimate environment. And so you just really get to know each other. And we all liked each other. We hung out a lot. Yeah. Yeah.
What I think, and I still hang out with you comically. So I think for me, I say, yes, the same example I say is, it's like you meet someone in kindergarten and you sit next to them until the graduating day of high school. Like it's such a long time together. And I think what you're alluding to, which Phil didn't do, is Hollywood is always looking for the next big hit. So for example, on Friends, a lot of writers on Friends were getting multi-million-dollar deals. Yeah. So they would say to a writer on Friends, listen, I know you're on Friends now, but you could develop your own Friends. Why don't we pay you $4 million and then you develop your own show? And 99% of the time, nothing comes of it. A hit show, because a hit, nothing to do with the writer's talent. A hit show is lightning in a bottle and very rare. Yeah, and very rare. So on Everest Raymond, that was happening. My agents every year, you should leave the show. We can get you a huge deal. And in hindsight, I think I made a mistake because I could really use that $4 million now. All right, Lisa. Yes. Saw Home Improvement back in the day. My biggest regret is I never got to go see a taping in person. Somewhere, Lisa, I have hours and hours of film behind the scenes at the show, and I just have to digitize them. But I went through every single department on the stage and talked about who was there and what they did in that department. There's a lot that I will share with this audience. So, all right.
There's so much to talk about. I feel like I thought, what are we going to talk about? I'm not going to remember any of it. And now I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to talk about.
Well, we've talked about almost nothing about the show, Lisa. So we have much more to cover. So I'll reach out to you. Don't dodge my phone call.
You've been very nice to me on this, much nicer than you usually are.
So say
people don't know our thing, our repertoire.
What I will say this, I'm reluctant to post this, but you would come into my office and you had so many knots in your neck that I used to be in the writer's room I used to be in the cafeteria, and this happened with Ray. So I had a friend who was a chiropractor, and they said, this is how you get rid of a knot. A knot is there's where blood flow doesn't go in your muscle. And so usually we get them in your neck, like when you're writing, because you're sitting there for 12 hours. Mm-hmm. And so somewhere I have a photo of you stopped in my office. You got a phone call, of course, or someone's like, Lisa, line 2. So you pick up the phone and you sat down and you're like, you have to, and you look so disheveled and beaten up. And I was trying to get a knot out of your neck to the point where I really tried to avoid that as much as possible because my thumbs were going to fall off from reducing your stress. It's comically funny when you see that. All right, Lisa, you'll hear from my lawyers. I will talk to you, and thank you so much. Say goodbye to everybody. Right. Goodbye.